So this is Sharon Browning, and I'm introducing her for our FCRP speaker series. Today is Sunday, April 27th, 2025. So Sharon coordinates Just Listening, a collaborative social enterprise fostering personal and social change and transformation through the practice and teaching of mindful, equitable, and just communication skills. The work of Just Listening is twofold: the facilitation of training workshops, retreats, and difficult conversations, focusing primarily on those working with marginalized individuals and groups, and training for and supervising listening projects in which volunteers listen justly to people on the social margins. I wanted to start by asking you, Sharon, and I know you get asked this a lot because people must be wildly curious. Can you say a little bit about what brought you to this work? What in your life and in your personal history inspired you to make this journey from, most of us know some lawyers, and
Wow.
and you're not the person that we think of when we think of most of our attorney friends. So who and how did you get here to doing this work?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. And I am really delighted to be with all of you this evening. Very happy to be here and share this work, which is very timely, given the challenges facing us at this particular moment in human history, planetary history. I actually was born in the Midwest. I was born in Wisconsin, and we lived in Illinois only until I was 8, but they were very, very formative years because my parents were very observant social justice Christians in the Catholic tradition. And so our entire life was structured both ritually and content-wise around justice and service from a faith-based perspective. So, for example, the only birthday party I had as a child, I was third of 6. There were 6 kids. We had a birthday party for 3 of us who had a cluster of birthdays together, but it was a fundraiser for flood victims. Which actually we were quite proud of. That was like, yeah. Look what we're doing. We get to do it, whatever. So it was that kind of, it's still in my blood. I don't consider myself practicing that anymore, but I was just talking to my brother yesterday about this, and he said, yes, like in the bones when you are raised and just steeped in that. And so really everything flows from this sense that we are here for our own joy, meaning the usefulness of our own particular unique gifts and skills, but that is for the joy of the earth and all of humanity. And so there comes a responsibility to put ourselves in the place, that intersection of, as Frederick Buechner has said, our deepest joys and the world's greatest needs. So that I was very privileged to, when we moved to the East Coast, to be able to access a high school education at a private girls' school. Was given a scholarship there, which absolutely was transformative for me. It continued sort of that moral ethical training, but also opened up all kinds of vistas in terms of what was possible. And again, that was, I graduated in 1969, so that was, whoa, women could maybe do these things. And so that led to law school and whatnot. I landed in law school at a time when there wasn't even the Legal Services Corporation yet, but there were starting to be legal aid offices spotted around, in cities and whatnot, rural areas, specifically with lawyers. At the time, people said being a voice for the voiceless, which is really inaccurate. It's simply being a tool for the amplification of voices that are not listened to. And so it was just a tremendously exciting time to be part of that whole movement. When my kids were small, I left that and taught in a local women's college for a bunch of years. So all of that was just formative in so many ways, and also personally becoming a mother. In law school, I met the love of my life, Jim Lafferty, who was also a legal services lawyer, and we both were quite passionate about that work and got involved in various peace movements and used our legal skills on behalf of people doing civil disobedience and et cetera, all that good stuff. At one point lived in community when the kids were small. It was a disaster, but it was a noble effort. So life goes on. And then I guess the other big formative thing, and then I'll just wrap it up, is a fair amount of loss in my life has also been tremendously formative, beginning with my dad dying when I was 11. There were 6 of us between 2 and 13. So that really shaped my life in a huge way. And then my mom died in 99. And then the very next year, my husband died, my beloved Jim Lafferty. Our children were teenagers. And so within a very short period of time, I had those losses. And then a couple of years later, my only sister died. And then 6 years ago, my youngest child, my son, Brendan, died also of a heart ailment. So all of that, I think, has just sort of made me revel in uncertainty because, who knows what's coming next. And so it makes the now quite important and magnificent. And so I think all of this kind of is born on the wings of that. And I can't say that I know anything for sure, other than I think this is a paraphrase of Carl Jung: what I believe this morning, I will not believe this afternoon, because there is always new information coming in and always a new perspective and a new person whose experience and viewpoint is so much more expansive than mine. So I'd say that. Oh.
We are a group that was founded by Jungians and Quakers in the shadow of World War II. And so thank you for just looping him in, because that is foundational to what this group looks to try to weave into the way that we formulate how we view the world and what makes a difference. How can people connect to themselves and everyone else and the planet spiritually? And Jung offers us a lot to do that.
Enormous. And also, I would say 2 other figures, I hadn't thought to put these in, but Carl Rogers, active, and maybe I'm hoping we have a little time to talk about active listening, because sadly, what passes as active listening in popular culture has no resemblance to what Rogers and his colleague envisioned, and in fact is now a detriment to our listening. I would suggest that it's problematic that we all think we know how to listen because we actively listen. So we nod our heads and we say, we restate. But question for everybody on this call: how many times are you in a space where someone's practicing, good hearts, listening ears, and somebody's practicing this intentionally, and they say, oh, so what I hear you saying is blah, 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 blah. And in your head, you're thinking, that is not at all what was said.
Yeah.
That's not at all what that person said. So we miss it all the time. And so hopefully we'll dig into that a little bit tonight as well. And then the second thing is Gandhi. I was captured from a very young age, early high school, by Gandhi, and actually his listening year. After he left his work in South Africa, he took a year to listen in India, and he just traveled around. He was bankrolled. I discovered when I attempted to do this myself that you actually need somebody paying you something to do that. It's a long story, but anyway, I loved the idea that you just go listen to people on the edges, because that's where you'll find out what needs to happen next. And so when I did start just listening, I did that in a much more limited way, but also trusted that that was the way to go, was just to listen very, very carefully to people on the edges.
Yeah. First of all, what incredible people to use as your inspirations. And I know you've got a long list. Early on in the book, I was struck by your choice of this David Augsburger quote. Being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are almost indistinguishable.
And it's true. And we will hopefully touch on this again in a little more depth, but really, we're suffering. And Vivek Murthy's book, recent book about, the pandemic of social isolation, because we all have, and all you on this call know this far better than I, that the need to belong is fundamental and primal. And without it, we die. We get sick, we die, we can't thrive without belonging. And so being able to be in relationship, to be seen, to be acknowledged for who you are, not fitting in, because once we try to fit in, we lose ourselves. Fitting in is trying to dance to somebody else's tune so they'll like you. But belonging, being able to show up authentically as who we are and be just embraced in that, is what we all hunger for. So this is that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the tool for
Yeah.
that.
When you and I talked before, I talked to you to ask for a little bit of guidance around the DEI work that we're doing at FCRP Planning Committee, and you blew me away with just adding it on at the end of me mentioning diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you just kind of peppered it in. And there's a B, and the B we're finding is actually the essence and the most important of all of these things. And it was the belongingness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that, I have to thank our colleague, Tanya Rambert, for giving me that one. She's an African-American woman, and so she has far greater insight into these issues than do I. And since that time, when she first pointed that out, I've just been like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, boy, she's really quite accurately and insightfully onto something huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One of the things that I love about how you work and even the writing of this book is that you were very quick to point out that this was a collaborative project. And then early on in one of the early pages, you mentioned that this is the work of actually 26 people.
36.
Is it 36?
36.
36 people. So this is just kind of how you work best, is bringing people in, hearing voices on the edges and amplifying them and kind of stepping back a little. And that's a wonderful way of thinking about what is it we're trying to do when we're actually listening to marginalized people, because many of the people on this call, that is the work we do. And so it is for us, I think one of the gifts that you can bring is, how do we do that better? How do we amplify
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
marginalized
And
voices?
we'll get a little more into the weeds on that too. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I know a lot of us here we're here because we're feeling some combination of overwhelmed, terrified, enraged, exasperated, confused, powerless at what's happening in the country and on the planet. And most of us have tried everything we know to figure out a way to be with the people that we have contact with who are a world away in terms of viewpoint and perspective on what's happening. How is it, what is it that you believe this model can offer us in a time that just feels so big? This moment feels so big and overwhelming at times. How is it that I left my conversations with you feeling hopeful and buoyant? What is it that you know that we don't know? About how do you reach people who, in psychological terms, we would use this phrase, they're very well defended. They're very hard to reach. Their wall is very, very thick. And as a therapist, I struggle with this with clients, but we're not talking about doing therapy here. And
No.
this training that you do is not geared toward therapists. It is for regular people who are trying to find ways to make relationship and to make human connection, to foster and to cultivate change. So like, how do we do this?
Well, yeah, I think it's, hold on a second. My brother's calling me. I just turned my phone off. One of my brothers, I have four. So how do we do this? Well, I think in the course of this time that we have together, I'm just going to highlight, a couple of things. As for this this particular moment in time, it is, from my perspective, I think this is the great turning. I mean, ancient, indigenous groups have been talking about this for millennia at this point and saying there will come a time when, and, this is the time when our systems are disintegrating. And we can, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it metaphorically, because I think that helps us humans access deeper truths, if we can talk about that a little bit. In terms of this idea of trying to get everybody on the same page, and people who are hardened in their thinking, I really would, what I decided when I saw you had a question about that, Mary, was I shifted how I had prepared this little presentation to put that first, so that we can set that up as maybe one of the lenses through which to look at the rest of the material, which I really hope doesn't go, my hope is that we go through all of that by 7 o'clock, and then take a little break, and then come back and everybody get into groups and talk. And I have a little conversation starter for everybody to get in groups of 3 and talk, practicing the skills with that as a frame. Because I think the question is how do we frame this in this time? And we're in a time of such massive paradigm shifts. During COVID, somehow I got this, it almost felt like a download of 12 paradigm shifts that we're in as a species right now. This is, from this to that, from this to that. And this is one of them, how we see each other. The work of just listening is not about our identities, although we deal with that. It's about our common humanity and what we all share. And so if it's okay with you, if you have another question, Mary, we'll go. Otherwise, I think I'll start to share my screen and just go for it. Can we do that?
No, I'm ready.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, so here we go. And I just want to say in advance that I will make these slides available to you. And because we have really a short time for this, I added a bunch on the end, and I'll put together a little email for you, Mary, with resources for people to access, because this is quick.
So thank you for your generosity. I just want to say thank you for that.
You're so welcome. Really, this is what I love to do. This is my joy. So thank you all for being here. It's a tremendous, I'm delighted to be here with all of you. Let me just get this slideshow going. Slideshow from beginning. Okay. So, and I do want to stop a little, even though this is kind of a 30-minute presentation, but I would like input from people as we go through this. And so Sherry has graciously agreed to identify raised hands, and we'll just see what we do. So what are we doing this evening? This is what we're doing. We're going to look at barriers to connection, to belonging, and start with perception and empathy, which over the years we've identified as sort of threshold issues that we really need to get some clarity on before we can look at those things that really prevent us from hearing each other. And so one way to think of it is when something comes out of someone's mouth and enters our ear and our minds, what are the barriers that distort what is said? What filters does that come through that create misunderstanding or prevent us from understanding? What are those obstacles? And so we're going to talk about 3 of them. We're also going to talk a little bit about some self-care issues, because in this time, it's always a big issue, self-care, but right now, we have to be careful not to exhaust ourselves and take care of ourselves. This is a long haul effort we're in the middle of. This is not anything that's going to be fixed in weeks. So anyway, and then we're going to look at us-them communication dynamics and some tools for turning down the temperature and them listen to each other. But what I did was I pushed the us-them dynamics first, because I think it is really important. One thing I invite everybody to do is put your feet on the floor and take 3 breaths just to be here now, to be present. And as you are doing that, think about what brought you here today. And as we move through this, just whatever resonates with you, that's for you. That's the thing to pay attention to. Because there's a lot of content here in a very short period of time, but whatever leaps out for you is your takeaway for this short time we have together. But right now, just because we know that this is important in settling our nervous systems, just to breathe 3 deep belly breaths and just be here now. Let everything go that has happened in your busy day so far. And just 3 breaths will conspire together. 3 breaths. Okay, thanks for that. I needed that. Thank you. So, what is just listening? Well, listening is not, as you've gathered by now, it's not only listening, as in just listening. It's listening as an act of justice. And we use, actually, with this group, I can say it's actually a more biblical definition of justice. It certainly is not the legal system's definition, which is very different, very rules-based. We're talking about relationships based on mutuality, not power, not hierarchy, and rooted in basic values of fairness, equity, equality, respect, recognizing and acknowledging the inherent dignity of every person. And this, as I said, is not so much about our identities, which we need to acknowledge and respect and honor, but this is about all of us humans all together, what we share. We also use the value of dignity, not respect. Again, this was a contribution of one of the co-authors, Fred Magundu, that respect is something that is sort of subjective. Somebody can respect us or not respect us. It may not have anything to do with us, everything to do with them. And so we talk about dignity, which all of us possess. And it can be acknowledged or not, but it cannot be taken from us. And so that is also a premise of this work that we do. We also think of listening as an emergent strategy. It's a present moment activity. So it's not about having a plan and an agenda. These are techniques that can be used when you have an agenda and when you have a plan. But the act itself of listening is very present moment. It's emergent. And emergent, I don't know whether any of you probably have read Adrienne Maree Brown's Emergent Strategies. What is emergence? Complex systems and patterns arising out of a multiplicity of relatively simple interactions, which means we don't have to do the grand scale thing. We have to be here now and do the little thing, the small thing. Emergent listening is listening in silent presence to what is being said, allowing it to take shape, and allowing our own responses to form in real time. And you'll see as we go through this that it's a mindfulness-based process. And it involves 2 things, not only listening to another, but first, the platform is listening to ourselves, the inner listening. And those of you with a Quaker background know a lot more about this from your personal experience than do I, but really cultivating that self-awareness, self-knowledge that allow us, it's a very Buddhist thing, as the kleshas arise, as we notice things arising in ourselves, to recognize them and to be able to be conscious and make a decision about what is arising in us that shapes our interactions with each other. So what's getting in the way? Well, right now, and this is what we're going to do this up front, we are so mad at each other. We're just so angry. So I thought it would be useful to talk about us-them dynamics and this is based on research that's in the notes and whatnot, and will be made available to you. But this is how most of us in this country are seeing each other. It doesn't matter who we voted for. These are the dynamics that we share. We all share right now. Oh dear, this got a little distorted. Well, we'll do the best we can. We think we're smart. We think they are stupid. We think we act in our self-interest. We think they don't act in their self-interest. And think of the conversations that we've been having. And this is, well, why would anybody vote against their self-interest? We think they don't vote in their self-interest. They think we don't vote, whoever they are. We think we're thoughtful. They're mindless. We're rational. They're irrational. And it has resulted in this escalation in affective division. There really is not a huge shift in the American population, the American context, of percentage of disagreement or percentage of various people in the population taking different views. That really hasn't shifted that much. What has shifted is the degree to which that difference has become activated as personal dislike. And we inflate the amount that by which our opponents dislike us by somewhere between 50 and 300%. When we actually can be in relationship with each other, that goes way down. And I don't mean in relationship where we're having arguments or expressing our contempt for each other or trying to persuade each other of the superiority of our viewpoint. So this is really critical information for us as we think about and plan conversations around with people who see the world very, very differently. The other thing to keep in mind is that the more partisan and deeply held our beliefs are, the more we have this bias and the more we inflate how much the other side hates us. This has become, on a physiological level, a fight for survival. We're all pushed into our primal brains, and this is neuroscience. We are hardwired for connection. And when we are hurt, insulted, blamed, or threatened, our circuitry for connection shuts down, and our bodies create an intense biochemical cocktail designed for fight or flight. And as you know, and by the way, this is also when our strongly held beliefs are challenged. We also do this. The part of our brain that lights up when we are being chased by a bear is the part that is activated when our views are challenged in this way. And just think about that. We are pushed into our primal brains unless we are being conscious and intentional and activating our frontal lobes and all of the miraculous things that happen there. We're going to practice that a little bit. So a question for everybody on this call is, what behaviors do you see yourself being either tempted into or just pushed into? Flight, fright, freeze, flee? Like what is your response to this? And again, these are all responses from the reptilian brain where there is no consciousness, there is no decision-making going on. We are not rationally looking at our options when we are in this highly, highly reactive place. And recently, within the past 100 days, we have collectively, everyone, been subjected to an intentional plan to disable us and to push us into reactive responses right in our reptilian brain. So the task is, in part, to recognize that, climb up out of it, and utilize our intelligence, our creativity, our innovation, our skillfulness in a conscious, intentional, aware way, so that we can actually be in peaceful relationship with each other. This is Derica Blackman. Most of the work is working on ourselves, on we have been taught that causes us to separate from each other, develop hierarchies, must be examined and released. And this is what we still want to do. We want a hierarchy. We want to be superior. My ideas are better than yours. I have a better viewpoint. If you could only think the way I do, everything would be fine. And that is a disaster. That's disaster for us right now. That isn't going to work. When we do this work on ourselves, when we cultivate, and I know everybody on this call has been doing this for years, cultivating self-awareness, consciousness, intentionality. When we do that, we reframe our questions. They don't become, how do we convince other people? That's not the question. So what I would like to suggest is that as we go through this next little part, just looking at these 3 filters. Yeah, good. We have 20 minutes to do that. That's good. In the back of your mind, have this. What's the different question then? How do we approach these chaotic, challenging, crazy times that we find ourselves in? And then I'm hoping that at the end of, after we do our little groups and everything, we'll be able to have a conversation about all of this together. So as I said, the threshold, let me just take a little drink of water here. Whoops, 1 second. Perception and empathy are threshold issues to sort of look at. And so first, if you look at this, there are, does anybody actually, Sherry, can you ask, get responses from 1 or 2 people? What do you think is happening here? Just 1 or 2 people. If you can say what your take on this picture is. What do you think is happening?
So I'm gonna just ask, as you screen share, I can't really see their hands anymore.
Well,
They
let
can
me,
just unmute and
the first 2 people, we'll go with
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So what was the question again? Could you repeat it?
And so what do you see in this picture? What do you think is happening?
I see the man in the center left who's angry. The woman beside him is sort of holding back. The man further to the right, our right, is maybe, I'm not sure where he's at. On the left, there's the man who's really looks intrigued and trying to figure it out. And then there's a woman who is maybe not sure what's happening.
Okay. All right. And what do you think about the central guy? What's up here?
Well, he's really angry about something and really trying to convince the other what his point is.
Thank you, Signe. One other person? Anyone with a different perception? Okay, you don't have to.
Actually, for a moment,
go ahead, James.
For a moment, I thought he was celebrating something, and he had some really exciting news. That didn't last long. I kind of looked at, I don't know, there was not much to collaborate.
Right. Thank you, James.
Feels to me like he's outraged and he's defending something.
He's defending something. Yeah, thank you, Susan.
Could be excited about a great idea.
He could. Or this could be a play. They could all be actors putting on a show. And so there's the takeaway from this one. Do we know? No, we don't know. We really have no clue. We don't have enough information. We don't have enough context. We don't have anything. I just want to suggest to you, and again, we could go on this for a long, long time. I just want to suggest that pretty much usually we don't know even what we're seeing in person. We're making up stories. We're making assumptions. We're telling ourselves stories based on our own viewpoint. And we don't really know, but then we act on those assumptions as if we do to our detriment. Okay, really quickly. What's that? Can anybody see what that is?
Oh,
I'm just gonna handle this one in the interest of time. That's a bunch of dots, right? It's just a bunch of dots. Okay. Well, it is a bunch of dots. It's Seurat's painting, the pointillist painting. And so you're down by the people lying on the ground. The takeaway from this one is, and some of you I'm sure have seen this, it's a huge painting. If you're standing really right up close to it, you can't tell what it is. It's just a bunch of dots. You have to stand back to get the bigger perspective. So that's one. We need a bigger view in order to understand even remotely what we're actually seeing. And we need to ask, because if this is our viewpoint, just this one little square is what I see, I'm not seeing the rest. I need to ask. I need to say, what do you see? Which piece of this do you see? Each of us only sees part of the whole. And just because people don't see the same thing doesn't mean that they're wrong. Doesn't mean they're wrong. We have to know radical humility. We really don't know. We don't know most things. What's this? One or two people to sort of say what they're seeing when they look at that? Just jump right on in.
I saw first the word liar, and then I saw the face.
Ah,
Yes.
well, that'll do it. You saw both things, right?
Yes.
So those of you who, thank you, and I can't see who said that, but thank you, whoever said that, you got both. So some people only see the outline of a man. The assumption is that it's a man here. Not everybody sees that, and not everybody sees the word liar. And those of you who are struggling to see the word liar, you have to change your perspective. You have to turn your head to look at it a little bit sideways, and then you'll see the cursive word liar. Just because we see something that somebody else doesn't see doesn't mean that our way is the highway, or just because somebody doesn't see something doesn't mean they're wrong. These notions of rightness and wrongness get us into a lot of trouble. And the other piece of this is this, that how we see the world is how we experience the world, and that becomes how we interpret the world. I once was doing this workshop, and there was an African-American gentleman in the group, and he said, well, there's something else about this image. And I said, oh, what else? And he said, well, if you assume that that's a Black man, which you could, because it's, Black background, you say it's a Black man. And if you have associated the word liar with that image, then you have planted a subliminal message that Black men are liars. Now, when this gentleman said that, I was simply appalled. I was like, no, I was horrified. I said, oh, and we ended up having a really wonderful colloquy about it. And I said to him, well, then I should just take it out of this presentation, because that's the last thing in the world I would want to do. And he said, oh, no, leave it in, but tell the story, because that's his experience. His experience is that Black men, all sorts of attributes all sorts of characteristics are attributed to them just because of other people's biases, implicit and otherwise, but that he would see that is based on his experience. His perception is based on his experience of the world. I didn't see that because I'm a white woman. He saw it because he's a Black man. Being able to have that conversation together means we have a deeper understanding of what this is and of what each other's lives have been. This is Viktor Frankl, Our Perceptions Are Our Ultimate Freedom, the last of the human freedoms. And by the way, it's very interesting to do this in prison. We just did a full day training at SCI Phoenix in the old Graterford prison, 200 men last Thursday. Anytime we talk about freedom, it's interesting. And they absolutely embrace this one. The last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And there were always choices to be made. And that's Viktor Frankl talking about the camps, the concentration camps. Even in prisons, there are always choices to be made. Even in the prisons of our own being, there are always choices to be made. We can become conscious and make choices about all of this. Empathy, as you know, we are built for connection. I do feel bad, like just kind of racing through this stuff, but we'll have fun later. And again, this is just to remind you of what you already know. We are built for connection. We have mirror neurons, the vagus nerve, all of these are empathy circuitry in our bodies. Just amazing, amazing ways in which we are designed, built to be aware of and one with other people. You know, when something happens to someone else, the mirror neuron fires as if it's happening to us. That's just amazing, powerful. The vagus nerve, which runs through all of, throat, heart, gut. I recently heard a podcast. It runs through women's a cervix. Like, who knew? This highway, this pathway for empathy, which we can actually activate. We can do exercises that activate our vagus nerve and improve our empathy, our empathetic presence. What is the problem then? Why do we look around the world and see so little evidence of empathy? Well, our empathy circuitry is only activated if we perceive someone as a member of our group. And so a big question for us, and this is something to take away and really look at carefully, whom do you perceive as other, lesser, or even enemy? In the language, look at the language. Who is us? Who are they? Who is in your we? And it's useful to take a piece of paper and write a circle, and in the middle put us and put everyone who's in your us. Put everyone or every living creature who is in your them and look at it and see how those might be brought together. David Sloan Wilson has said, we are at our species is at a place where anything, our we has to be the planet and all life on it. Anything less than that is too small for us. And we're worried about who voted for whom. And that's not helpful to us. So who is your we? Who is your they? And be mindful of language. We other people by using the article the. It's really clear that we use the article the to make people not me and them. So the homeless, the rich, the poor, the, the inmates, whatever. And one little trick, one way around that, and say those of us who are unhoused, those of us who don't have enough money to live, those of us who have more than is needed to live. And so it's just play with it and see, it just shifts us into this other way of thinking and framing this time that we're in, and in fact, who we are as a species, who's the possible human. If we have time, we'll talk about that a little. Okay, so very quickly, because we'll take a break in 10 minutes. The three filters that we're going to talk about: the contents of our own minds. We think we're listening to somebody else. We're actually listening to ourselves. Sociocultural filters and personal favorite ego. We'll do this one first. What are you thinking? Like, what's in your brain? Maybe one person want to say a thought so we humans can think about what. So we're doing this, we're focused on this, but we're also having conversations in our head. Anyone want to offer a little conversational thread in your own head? Just unmute and jump in.
I would just like to say that I resonate with this very much. I mean, my personal life story is finding these insights. So I really appreciate this. And
well, thank you. Thank you so much. So what you're thinking is you're doing an application to your own story, right?
Right.
And thank you. So I thank you for doing that. If we had time, I would pull out more of this. But here's what goes on in all of our heads. We all do some version of this, right? All of us humans. We think we're listening to another person. We're thinking of our to-do list, thinking of what to say in response, thinking of a solution, thinking why the other person is wrong. And we can even, with a smile on our face, nod. But inside we're going, oh my God, that's ridiculous. It's just the worst thing. We're judging people in our heads, thinking about a similar thing that happened to us. And then we interrupt people to tell them, oh, I know what you mean. It's happened to me. No, we were talking about you. Now we're going to talk about me. That's an ego function. Thinking about what you have to do next. And I don't, These are guidelines, not rules. Sometimes we need to make connections, and that's the way to make it. It's just good to be really mindful about when we're making it all about us. And we've all had that experience. Someone interrupts us to say, oh, I know, let me tell you about whatever. And 10 minutes later, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted. What were we saying? And in your head, you're going, I don't even remember. It's not even worth it. Like, why would we have a conversation when that's what happens? Think about what we have to do next. Worries. We're always congesting our head with things that might happen that probably won't. So I'm going to give you a simple little trick to sort of push all this stuff out of your head so you can all have conversations together. Sociocultural filters, all of these things and many more: age, education, ethnicity, neurodivergence, race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, social class. Every human, all of us, have some relationship to each of these things that is uniquely ours. And with each of those, and that's us at the intersection, that little star is all of it, each of us uniquely at the center of our own stuff. Each of the sociocultural factors have rules and norms that come with them. Rules about possessions, money, time, education, language, worldview, personality, motivations. It's incredibly complicated. There is such enormous variation in norms and beliefs all over the globe. And each of those identities may have a different relationship and belief system or norms around each of these different factors. And again, I'm sending this so you can look at it. It's too small to see now, but we often react to other humans on the basis of differences that we can see. And that's what's above ground here, above the water in this image. And then there are all these things that are below that we have not a clue about, not a clue. But we make assumptions, we make judgments based on what we think we know. So again, radical humility, we don't know. And radical curiosity, I wonder what it is I don't know. And that includes nonverbals. There are cultural universals, but how they are displayed and when they are displayed is highly variable. And so all nonverbals are not trustworthy. We need to be in a sufficiently trusting space where we can ask. Again, implicit bias is a big thing. To some degree, we're sort of normalizing by having implicit bias workshops that don't have any follow-up, no strategies, nothing. We harden people. Everyone says, oh yeah, I'm biased, you're biased, we're all biased. Oh, oops. When we need concrete strategies, intentional strategies to address our implicit biases, if you haven't tested yourself, I tried to see if there's like a written way that you can evaluate yourself, because this involves a little putting 2 fingers on your keyboard and testing yourself. I would suggest sticking with it because it's a pretty good little test on various subjects that you can take for free through Harvard and Stanford and I think the University of Washington, someplace else, and really get a little assessment of our own implicit bias. We all have it. It's kind of freeing to know that we're all in this boat together, all of us. And finally, ego, which is kind of my personal favorite, hugely distorts our conversational dynamics, our understanding, our failure to understand. And we all share this. We all do these things. So a healthy ego, and again, you're a therapist, looks like feeling like there's enough. You're compassionate, authentic. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, accepting of others, curious, full of possibility, able to let go, loving, experiencing freedom, etc., being in the present moment. The unhealthy ego, like the little wounded puppy self that is in all of us and is central in why we behave in ways that are not healthy for us and other people in our relationships, look like this: reactive, passive, aggressive, defensive, fearful, jealous, hypersensitive, easily offended, wrapped up in self, having an agenda, which you don't tell people, you just have it. And then withholding our full selves. The hallmark of a dysfunctional ego is feeling separate, Nobody's like me. Nobody has it like me. I'm unique in all the world, in my misery or in my fabulousness or in my inferiority. It doesn't matter. We think of inflated ego as thinking we're so good. It is also an ego dysfunction to think that we are so terrible. So this unhealthy ego is one of the engines of othering and us, them. We have to feel superior. We have to be on top. And what do those unhealthy ego behaviors look like? This is what they look like. Giving unsolicited advice. And this, by the way, is borrowed from Eckhart Tolle's Unconscious Manifestations of Ego, which I really love. And also Parker Palmer, some of this, fixing, saving, setting straight, all of that, that's ego. That's all the things that Parker Palmer says don't do. You're like, oh yeah, that's ego. Giving unsolicited advice, trying to fix other people, preparing a response, judging other people. My goodness, we're judging all day long. Complaining without an effort to change anything. Complaint is a symptom of imbalance. It's an invitation to change something. When we complain chronically, it's really unhealthy. Name calling, even minor things like, oh, what a jerk. Why do we do that? Makes us feel superior to someone else. Cultivating resentment and grudges, us-theming, unhealthy anger, as all of you, anger is healthy, to a point. It's like hunger. It arises. As Thich Nhat Hanh said, anger is our crying baby. We have to take the baby in our arms and ask the baby what it needs, what's going on. I like Dan Gottlieb's formulation of this. He said, anger is the justice emotion. We experience anger, and then there's more under that, but there's a cover emotion. But we experience anger when we perceive injustice, when we perceive unfairness. And I think that's such a beautiful way to sort of parse out what's going on with anger that can really get out of control. It's a perception of unfairness and injustice. Interrupting other people. We were talking about you, but now we're going to talk about moi. Arguing our point. We could go on about that for a long time, and maybe we will. Confusing opinions as fact and taking things personally. So those are just a little smattering of how we respond that's coming from a place of ego. And just really quickly, and then we're going to take a little bio break here. More barriers, self-care, specifically compassion fatigue, sacrifice syndrome, and pathological altruism. And I put slides at the bottom of the presentation that have definitions and resources around all of these things, but especially people who are doing some kind of social service work or providing services to other human people, also in healthcare, anywhere where that's the dynamic. These are traps that we can fall into, and organizations can fall into things like sacrifice syndrome, this expectation that the need is so great, are just expected to bleed themselves out because other people have it so much worse. Competitive suffering. Well, I have a friend recently who was very, very sick, and she said, yes, but I have no right to feel bad for myself because other people have it so much worse. And like, oh, we don't need to compare our suffering. In fact, if we can fully embrace our own, then we can embrace each other's. So how can we stay balanced, committed, and effective for the long haul? We have to be, and I'm talking to a bunch of people here who have been in it for the long haul. How do we do this? And how do we encourage balance in each other across the generations? Just one final thought, and then we're going to take a little bio break here. Then we'll talk in groups, and then we come back, we'll all talk together. I mentioned using metaphors, and I think this is a way to sort of frame these times in which we find ourselves that just might be a little helpful. One, trim tabs. Some of you undoubtedly know what trim tabs are. I'm guessing that most of us have seen them, even if we don't know what they're called, on airplane wings and tails. And on the rudders of those huge container ships and big ships in the ocean are tiny little metal flaps. And you're sitting on an airplane testing them, they're going up and down. And Buckminster Fuller actually popularized this metaphor. He insisted that he have a tombstone that read, "Bucky, just call me trim tab." And his reasoning is that trim tabs, their function is when the pilot of those vessels turns the trim tab just a little, it's this small thing on these giant things, turns it just a little, the whole thing turns. So the whole ship turns if you turn the trim tab. The plane turns if you alter these tiny little metal things. And so the suggestion here is that listening is a trim tab. It's an emergent strategy. It's a trim tab. It's this small thing that has massive impact. The butterflies thing, and this is just the last little metaphor, and I can stop sharing here now so I can see people. Again, I'm sure many of you know the evolutionary biology of butterflies. The caterpillar spins a chrysalis, which is wonderful to see in slow motion. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and see it. Oh my goodness, it's just magnificent. The caterpillar at the appropriate time makes the chrysalis, goes into the chrysalis. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar does not die, it disintegrates and it becomes goop. It's goop. In that disintegrating body of the caterpillar are things, they are literally called this is a biological term, I'm not making it up. The cells that were in the body of the caterpillar all along, but had no function for the caterpillar, are called imaginal cells. Imaginal cells. They're in the goop. The disintegrating body of the caterpillar, the immune system is activated, doesn't recognize the imaginal cells, hasn't had anything to do with them before, and so it attacks them. The imaginal cells then proliferate. And if, but only if, the imaginal cells link up with each other, that's the body of the butterfly. So as a metaphor for our times, we're goop. We're chaos. We don't know what we're becoming. Does the caterpillar see itself as a butterfly? I mean, we don't really know, but chances are not, doesn't even know what these imaginal cells have no function for the caterpillar, but activated with this disintegration, this chaotic event that happens, what emerges if there is the communal linking up of these cells is the butterfly. And so the question is, and others have asked this far more astutely and in more scholarly way than I, but the question is, what are we becoming? What choices are we making? How are we linking up? What are we doing individually and together? What is possible for us humans? We think we know, we even describe ourselves as the crown of creation, everything. We have no idea who we are together, but we can explore it. And this way of being with each other, utilizing these skills, is a way to enter into that process.
So we're just back from an opportunity to practice the just listening techniques with each other in small groups. And I had a wonderful encounter with two women in my group. And this just made me want to learn more about this. So if you would also like to get more experience and exposure to the just listening model, you can get yourself a copy of Sharon Browning and Company's Little Book of Listening as a Radical Act of Love, Justice, Healing, and Transformation, available for, I think it's maybe $12. And it really is a little book. It's about 112 pages, and it includes all the important background information about the model and actual steps that you can use in your relationships, in your organizations, and any place where you would like to forge better connections across differences. So thank you again, Sharon, for sharing your incredible gifts with us. We are so grateful for our time with you. If you are moved to make a donation in honor of this program, we'll be sharing 50% of any monies that are donated specifically off of this program to Sharon's justlistening.org organization. Of course, this is not required. These are offered for free, and we're just happy to make more connections and spread the availability of the Friends Conference on Spirit and Psyche programs. So we have our annual conference in May, and we are sold out. We sold out very early this year. We do have a wait list, but we are full. And we also have the Inward Light online journal, which is full of incredibly well-sourced and authentic, really just inspiring articles, essays, artwork, poetry. We're always looking for submissions. If you're looking for a place to share your art, that would be at the Inward Light on our website, FCRP-Quakers.org. And we also have the Dora Wilson collection, which is a fantastic collection of our archives curated by the fabulous and wonderful Tara Tappert. That's worth checking out. And we look forward to hopefully connecting with you again in the future. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time at the Friends Collaborative on Spirit and Psyche speaker series. Bye-bye now.